In our next unit, we're going to be focused on metabolism. And metabolism is how organisms gain and use energy. You may remember metabolism from the beginning of the year because the ability to gain or use energy was a characteristic of life. So all living things, prokaryote and eukaryote, have to be able to somehow acquire and sequester energy. Without energy, our cells wouldn't be able to function and play specialized roles within our bodies. Bacterial metabolism typically occurs at the membrane of the bacterium because prokaryotes, like bacteria, do not have membrane-bound organelles. However, eukaryotes, which do have membrane-bound organelles, require special structures in order to carry out metabolism. We are going to talk today about these specialized structures in eukaryotes. And the processes that these allow eukaryotic cells to carry out are called photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Sometimes you will see it referred to as just respiration. Photosynthesis occurs in plant cells only because photosynthesis involves a pigment called chlorophyll, and this pigment is a green color, and we'll talk about why later. Animal cells do not have chlorophyll and therefore cannot carry out photosynthesis. So for photosynthesis, only one type of eukaryotic cell is involved. With cellular respiration, however, you can see the structures necessary in animal and plant cells. One of the products of photosynthesis is glucose, and that's not a usable form of energy. So plants and animals have to have structures to be able to convert glucose into a usable form of energy. The critical structure for photosynthesis is the chloroplast. And for cell respiration, the critical structure is a mitochondrion. The plural of mitochondrion is mitochondria. We're going to sketch out the structures for each of these, starting with the chloroplast. The chloroplast is a membrane-bound organelle in plant cells. You may remember drawing one in your cell scaling project. The chloroplast has a double membrane. Instead of having a single membrane like peroxisomes, lysosomes, and some of the other membrane-bound organelles, the chloroplast has an outer membrane and an inner membrane. You may be wondering, I thought plant cells had a cell wall. And that's true, but the cell wall is surrounding the entire cell. We need to remember that the chloroplast is an organelle within the plant cell. Inside of the chloroplast, there are little discs. Each one of these discs is called a thylakoid. And when these discs form stacks, there's another name for a stack of thylakoids, and that is a granum. The plural of granum is grana because there are multiple stacks of these thylakoids. Surrounding the grana is a fluid. This has slightly different properties from the cytoplasm, and this fluid is called stroma. When we look at the process of photosynthesis, you will see that it's broken up into two main components. The first part of the process occurs in the thylakoid, and the second part of the process will occur in the stroma. Now we'll go into the structure of the mitochondrion. Just like chloroplasts, mitochondria also have two membranes. there is the outer membrane. And for the mitochondrion, we're not going to draw the inner membrane as being right inside the outer membrane like we did for the chloroplast. Instead, the inner membrane is going to have a lot of folds in it. This increases the surface area of this inner membrane, and we'll talk about why when we discover cellular respiration. These infoldings in the membrane are called cristae. And I'm going to go ahead and label my inner membrane. The space between the two membranes, the outer membrane and the inner membrane, also has a name. It's called the intermembrane space. And here's where one of the critical steps of cellular respiration will occur. Inside of the inner membrane, that area is called the matrix. One of the reasons why a mitochondrion needs two membranes, an outer membrane and an inner membrane, is because it has to keep regions of different pHs separated. The intermembrane space has a low pH, so a more acidic pH, but the matrix has a higher pH. Its pH is slightly basic. Without a membrane separating these two sections, we wouldn't be able to get a difference in pH. And we'll find out why that's important when we talk about oxidative phosphorylation, or the electron transport chain. Inside of the matrix, there is DNA. This DNA is not the same as the DNA in the nucleus. So we call these mitochondrial DNA. And what's so fascinating about this is, unlike the DNA found in the nucleus, these pieces of DNA are passed directly from the mother. I'm going to zoom out for a bit so you can see some similarities and differences between the chloroplast and the mitochondrion. Just as a recap, in a plant cell, I'm going to draw the cell wall and the cell membrane. And remember, it has that huge central vacuole, the nucleus, and a lot of other organelles. But inside of this plant cell, you are going to have multiple mitochondria as well as multiple chloroplasts. So it's important to remember that both structures are present in plant cells. For animal cells, however, which we represent as circles, again, it does have a nucleus. It has all those organelles you included in your cell scaling project. Except it does not have chloroplasts. Animal cells will just have mitochondria. This is important because the products of photosynthesis and cellular respiration are very distinct. With photosynthesis, the energy or the chemical energy product is glucose. And with cell respiration, the chemical energy product is ATP. So animal cells are not going to be producing glucose. However, they will still produce ATP.